Today on Fired Up, the panel discusses a teenager who shot a fellow student that appeared to be under the influence of drugs while trying to break into his house.
The panic factor of that family must have been through the roof.
If somebody is screaming and forcibly trying to enter your home at 1 a.m. nonetheless, I think this is clearly a violent attempt to come through. He's already tried to forcibly enter with his foot through the door.
I'd be betting that they're going to find some substance in his system that was the root cause for his behavior.
That would probably have solved this issue maybe a little bit without the catastrophic results that happened here.
And then we discuss Colorado's canceled gun buyback program.
It's a foolish law that they cannot effectively enforce. Several of them come right out, like you said, and said it's just a flat violation of the Second Amendment.
We'll also discuss older people being targeted by robbers in the Las Vegas Valley.
They're picking on people that are basically defenseless.
But these punks that target elderly people are the scum of the earth.
Mike Rogers brings you the Moron of the Week and the Less Than Lethal segment. And Tony D will have some historical firearm demonstrations for you. That's here on Fired Up today.
Hey, thanks for tuning in and welcome to Fired Up. I'm Bob Irwin, your host for this show, coming to you from the gun store in Las Vegas. This program is about guns, politics, and self-defense. Each week in this same time slot, we'll present a panel discussion on firearms issues, some tips for gun owners, and possibly some useful products you may find available in your area. This week's panel includes, to my right, my co-host and marketing director here at the gun store, Emily Miller.
Hello.
Then we have, to my left, criminal defense attorney Michael Giles with the firm of Creed & Giles here in Las Vegas. We have one of our firearms instructors here and master gunsmith, Tony D. And Randy Sutton, who's a retired lieutenant from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and an author of several books on policing. They can be found at legacychallenge.com. You get a plug there, Randy.
Beautiful.
Our first segment tonight, we're going to be examining a home invasion, which has a lot of background to it, and it'll prove to be an interesting case when we get there. Our second segment, a little later in the show, involves a number of Colorado sheriffs who are kind of revolting over a new state law that criminalizes normal capacity magazines. What we call high capacity magazines actually are the normal one that comes with the gun. And there's quite a stir going on in Colorado over that. The third segment, later on in the show, we're going to talk about some serious problems we're having in Las Vegas with a robbery group or several groups that seem to be coordinated and attacking, stalking and attacking senior citizens. We'll get to that in just a minute, but I want to first start talking about this first case. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it and a short version, I hope, and then we'll open it up to the panel for some comments. This is in Hominy, Oklahoma, where is Hominy, Oklahoma? It's rural Oklahoma someplace.
Right next to Grits.
And this happened just a week ago. Just before 1 a.m., a woman is in her house and she heard noises on the front porch. She goes out and finds a young man, a teenager, sitting on her front porch. She told him to leave. He didn't really, kind of looked at her, so she went back through the door and called 911. She looked out the door again. He was sitting on the swing in front of the house. I looked out the window. I yelled at him, she said. The boy came up and pressed his face against her window. She said he looked like he was high. Scared of his behavior, she demanded he leave the property and ran to secure her home. She said, I realized I was latching the door while I was talking to him and the door was unlocked. That kind of freaked me out. Well, she was already on the phone with dispatch when she heard gunfire coming from apparently the house next door. He had apparently gone to a neighboring house and the residents told those residents that someone was trying to hurt him. Bear in mind, this is all 1 o'clock in the morning. The resident woman at the second house said the male began beating on her front door at 1 a.m. Her 10-year-old daughter went to the door and the person began yelling aggressively at the daughter, they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me, over and over. The little girl opened the door. The teenager put one foot inside and kept screaming, so the woman forced the door slammed in his face. He then punched through the glass portion of the window and reached over with his arm and began unhooking the door from the inside. The woman was so frightened, she had been screaming. She woke up her 17-year-old son, told him to get a gun. The son is a high school senior. He grabbed a 12-gauge shotgun they had in the house and fired through the door as the teenager was reaching through the broken glass. At that point, he was apparently killed. He was transported to the nearest hospital. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. On the 911 call, the woman in the home said her forehead was bleeding from the shattered glass. The teenager turns out to be 16 years old. He goes to high school in the next town. Family members confirmed his identity right away. No arrests have been made. The Osage County Sheriff's Office will submit their findings to the district attorney, as is common. This seems on its face to be a very clear-cut case of self-defense. There's a lot of stuff going on here, though. I read you the general circumstances. There's a little bit more. Emily, the woman at home did exactly the right thing in keeping him out and calling the cops?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anyone, I think across the board, whether it's a woman at home with 2 young children or not, if somebody is screaming and forcibly trying to enter your home, clear at 1 a.m. nonetheless, like clearly this isn't a friendly neighbor just passing by. I think this is clearly a violent attempt to come through. He's already tried to forcefully enter with his foot through the door, punch through the glass. I think she did the right thing. I mean, she did what she could because she herself wasn't armed. She got her son to come downstairs. So given what she was able to do with, first of all, her 10-year-old daughter, why is that kid answering the door?
At 1 in the morning.
At 1 in the, I mean, I'm sorry, like that's a little strange. Like I know better to do that. But yeah, I think absolutely she did the right thing with calling 911 and trying to stave him off as long as she could.
Tony, firearms instructor, home defense guy. The second neighbor apparently had no really good choices.
No, she was trying to keep him out. The bad thing about a lot of people don't have plans. They don't plan for anything like this, and it's very hard to have a plan like this. Like a lot of people have plans for fires. If there's a fire in a house, or you go here, I'll meet you here, let's go out here. They really should do the same thing for personal defense. If there was a can of pepper spray by the door and they instruct the kids on how to use the pepper spray, that would probably have solved this issue maybe a little bit without the catastrophic results that happened here. But you know, people have to have a plan. And for her to yell the kid to go get the shotgun and this, you know, I mean, obviously it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but a plan.
It's a little late to run get the shotgun when he's crashing through the door.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was in time, apparently. Randy, we've got a police response coming. We know they're going to be at least 5 minutes away. Rural Missouri, probably more like 10.
Oklahoma. Oklahoma, right?
Oklahoma, I'm sorry. Yeah, Oklahoma. They'd be about the same in either state, but you know.
Well, the fact of the matter is there's going to be lag time between calling 911 and having a police response. You don't have time to wait for the police. The police cannot be there that quickly. Yeah. This is a very dynamic situation. It's happening very quickly. The panic factor of that family must have been through the roof. The fact that he had already punched through and was reaching through the latch, he was already committing a home invasion, a major felony. He was showing signs of what can only be considered, you know, erratic behavior. What do you think he's going to do when he gets into the house? He's not going to sit down for a cup of tea.
Well, he's yelling for help. He's saying someone's trying to kill me.
Oh, yeah, okay, and I'm Clark Gable, but they had every right to do what they did. The fact that the kid came down and brought the shotgun, he's 16 years old?
17.
17 years old, I mean, shows an amazing presence of mind. I think the kid's a hero. He probably saved his family. And unfortunately, this is going to scar him, the taking of a human life, no matter how justified. This is going to scar that kid, I have a feeling. and probably have an effect for the rest of his life.
I would assume so. Michael, Randy brought it up. We have a 17-year-old shooter here shooting a 16-year-old. This is not the classic Obama administration teenagers shooting each other.
It's not. This young
Somewhat
man-
different.
This young man will suffer in one form or another lifelong effects from this. Police officers who are trained to handle this tend to have these same problems later on in life. Military members coming home from the wars have a hard time adjusting to what they had to do to stay alive and to defend their brothers and sisters in arms in the field. This is a 17-year-old. I'm going to guess that there's not a high crime rate in this area. He may very well go to school with this kid or in the same school district as this kid. And there's going to be, if not a legal backlash criminally, there's likely to be a civil backlash, and he's going to be the brunt of it. He's the one who pulled the trigger, even though mom said get the shotgun. He's going to live through that trauma that'll take years. Right. He'll have to carry this burden for the rest of his life, and if he remains in this small town area, he's always going to be the guy who shot this kid, and this kid will be sainted by the end of the trial by at least his friends and family members. And so if he stays in this area of Oklahoma for the rest of his life, he'll always have this with him. Can't get away from it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I also pulled from the local newspaper's blog some response from the community that knew the individuals, and it might surprise you, a lot of it. We're going to break for a little capitalism here, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes and get into some of the reaction in the town. We'll be right back.
Coming up a little later, we'll discuss older people being targeted by robbers in the Vegas Valley.
They're picking on people that are basically defenseless.
But these punks that target elderly people are the scum of the earth.
We'll also discuss Colorado's canceled gun buyback program.
Several of them come right out, like you said, and said it's just a flat violation of the Second Amendment.
That's up next, right here on Fired Up.
Are you able to protect your loved ones? We at the Gun Store have been helping Las Vegas residents equip themselves with home defense and personal safety products for over 25 years. We carry a full line of self-defense options, and our CCW concealed firearms permit class is free. Our other classes include ladies self-defense and free children's gun safety class. Our indoor range is open 7 days a week for you to try out some options and shoot a real machine gun. The Gun Store, located at 2900 East Tropicana Avenue.
And we are back here on Fired Up. We are in the middle of discussing this case of a home invasion where a 16-year-old ends up getting shot coming through the door of a house with a 17-year-old in it and his family with a shotgun. What seems on the surface, even when I read all the police stuff involved with this, it seems unfortunate, but it's certainly a legitimate shooting. When I pulled up the blog that goes with the local weekly paper, we got some interesting comments on it, and I'm going to have Emily share some of those, and we'll discuss how the people could get into that realm.
Coming from a small town, I think these people they knew both sides. You know, they knew the kids. So some of the comments are pretty heated. One of the people commented and said, "I can't imagine what the boy must be going through and what he will go through for the rest of his life, because he had no choice but to take the life of another human being. My sons are 17 and 19, and there is no doubt in my mind that if someone was to try and break in my house and it was just us here, that one of them would have done the same to protect us as well. Sons are always going to protect their moms if they are raised right." So
Absolutely true, and that's probably what happened exactly here.
Another person said that the victim was an awesome kid. He said whether the 17-year-old had to load the gun or not, he still had time to wake up and go to the front door. He just wanted to help the family, but was scared. But if you were in his shoes and where you were being chased, what would you do if you were away from home? Tell me what I don't want to hear. It was his fault. He's a kid for sake. I think there were some typos in this, but we're trying to read it as closely as what these people wrote. What if that was your kid out there and all alone and needed help? Would you shoot him? That's all I want to know. You have my prayers. We miss you. So
So they're saying that they shouldn't have shot the kid,
He's
even
a
though it's 1
victim?
in the morning and he's coming through the door, breaking the window, and so forth.
You know, I wish that we had a little more information, like the toxicology
Right.
tests.
Yeah, because
You know,
if he wasn't acting right to begin with, and then
Right.
if he the paranoia, the other woman said they're trying to kill me, you know, something's not
Right.
going
So
on.
he either has some serious mental issues or some chemically induced mental issues. And if I were a betting man, I'd be betting that they're going to find some substance in his system that was the root cause for his behavior. And then you look at, okay, whose decision was it to take dope in the first place? And then we get back to decision making that leads to circumstances like this.
One of the comments actually says that he was their neighbor, and they say, he was my neighbor and I cared about him. He has robbed many homes in my area. The tragedy is that he did not receive proper supervision or guidance from his parents, who worked and just bought him new cell phones, dogs, toys, etc. He was love-starved and hung out with drug dealers. So that was, I mean, we don't know
There
if
you
that's
go.
credible or not, but
I'm a visionary.
Randy, you're clairvoyant. It's amazing. Yeah?
Therein lies one of the problems, Randy. Even if he'd gotten in the house and they hadn't shot him, and he was in some kind of a drug-induced paranoia, you've dealt with these individuals on the street. Aren't they just as likely to lash out if you're trying to help them as if?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, by trying to get into the house, once he gets in there, who's he going to see as the enemy?
Yeah,
The same
who is it who's
people.
trying to kill him,
Yeah,
right?
if they had just opened the door, oh, come on in.
You know, one of my
There was nothing
CCW
but trouble
students
happening
right here
here.
in Las Vegas a few years ago was in a situation very similar to this, where a crazy meth head was throwing his lawn furniture off his front porch and everything. He had chronic fatigue syndrome. He wheeled up in a wheelchair, looked outside, didn't see anything because the guy was next to his door for some unknown reason, because he felt secure because he had a screen door. He opened up the door. The guy grabbed him. They're rolling around on the front lawn, and luckily he had a .38 with him and put him right through his chest and shot and killed the guy. So here's another, you know, and that happened right here in Las Vegas. And it affected my student so bad. I knew him as a personal friend of mine, and he ended up dying about a year, almost a year to the day of the incident. It really affected him mentally. It really hurt him really badly. And but it was a very traumatic thing, and it happens, you know. And I don't know why he opened the door. I mean, I just say, why did you do that?
I know that this is gonna get you pretty heated.
Oh boy.
For those that will remember our Zimmerman talks, but actually, one of the people posted the following, and I'll steer clear of you, Randy. He said he was a child. Remember that? Childhood. It still exists. We have parents that dedicate themselves to work and not their family. Why are we so quick to jump to violence, my Zimmerman society? Why did this other loving parent wake their 17-year-old child and get his gun? Did she not buy one for herself before her child got a gun? God, I'm getting mad reading this. A gun that could and did take a human life. The facts are that the woman who woke up her 17-year-old knew him. That is not being reported. Now, this is going back and forth. People are saying that the kids knew each other, and then they're saying absolutely not, they did not know each other.
They went to different high schools, several
So
miles apart.
it's not sure where you go, but clearly the family had no reason to protect themselves, according to this person. We just shoot people that come to our door.
You know, I mean, I think she had her hands full at that time. You know, you're trying to keep the door closed when she told the son to get the gun.
And this is Oklahoma. I mean, it's a very gun-friendly. You know, you're in the
kid
Midwest,
was
you're in the
probably
South.
Knew
Kids shoot.
what he was doing. He was probably a hunter or whatever. You know, I mean.
The end of this type of thing is you're always going to have opinions from people that knew. I don't know how many we've seen over the years in our own lives where he was a good boy. It was just he hung out with the wrong crowd, and nobody ever went to the parents and said he is the wrong crowd. You know, that they're hanging out with him. It's the other way around.
You know what it really comes down to, Bob, is it's accountability. Okay? Who made the decision, and what was the results of the decision? This kid made the decision probably to do dope, and then in his drug-addled mind, he made the decision to try and break into somebody's house, and as a result, he's dead. Oh, well.
But the sympathy I have is the 17-year-old who's got to live with it the rest
the
of
shooter.
his life.
That's exactly right. He's the victim.
It's going to be.
He's the victim, not
pardon the
that
expression,
moron who just did exactly what he did.
Yeah, it's going to be the George Zimmerman thing all over again, where now he got some people saved that he helped get out of a wrecked car, and now that family that Zimmerman helped is scared they're going to get
Wait a
drawn
minute,
into the Zimmerman
aren't you
thing.
aware that that's a conspiracy? That didn't really happen?
Yeah. Okay. We're going to take a break here. We're going to be back in a few minutes and change the subject on you. We'll be right back.
Are you able to protect your loved ones? We at the Gun Store have been helping Las Vegas residents equip themselves with home defense and personal safety products for over 25 years. We carry a full line of self-defense options, and our CCW concealed firearms permit class is free. Our other classes include ladies self-defense and free children's gun safety class. Our indoor range is open 7 days a week for you to try out some options and shoot a real machine gun. The Gun Store, located at 2900 East Tropicana Avenue.
I'm Mike Rogers from the Gun Store. What we're talking about today is your options when you can't use lethal force, basically less lethal. One of my favorites is eye poke in a can. It is pepper spray. Very easy to obtain. In most states it's legal to carry. In our state you have to be 18 years old or greater and not be a felon. You can have it with you at all times. Just don't take it to the courthouse. Don't take it on an airplane. Neither are good ideas. It's super easy to operate. As it says on the package right here, making grown men cry since 1975. I basically defeat the safety, extend it part way, give it a squirt. I squirt it into his face. He's going to be incapacitated anywhere from 20 to 45 seconds. The beauty of it is, as long as it's in defensive use, that you have some level of fear or irritation, there's no problem with the stuff. You're not going to have any lethal effect. You're not going to have any long-term effect. You don't have to hesitate. I love it when the ladies in my life have this with them all the time when they walk to their car or something like that. You don't need to have somebody hassling you or intruding in your space that you don't want there. You can keep them away with this stuff. It works very well. You give them a quick blast, you get out of the area, let him be incapacitated. It's going to affect his vision, it's going to affect his breathing. Neither of these are long-term, but it's going to allow you to make your escape from the area. It works on multiple offenders if you have more than one person to deal with. So have this stuff with you. It comes in many different forms. This one's designed to go on a keychain. We have a package that goes together. There's a wall mount for this, so you have it by your front door. It's a less than lethal force. It's extremely effective. It's very easy to use. There's really no reason not to have your pepper spray. Even if you're carrying a gun all the time, you need that less than lethal alternative.
Coming up a little later, we'll discuss older people being targeted by robbers in the Vegas Valley.
But these punks that target elderly people are the scum of the earth.
Are you tired of the same old routine? It's time to shake things up with a visit to the Pro Gun Club of Las Vegas. Located just 25 minutes from the Strip, Pro Gun Club offers 160 acres of space, featuring skeet shooting, rifle and handgun ranges. It's a great place to practice, and safety is always number one. Come anytime and enjoy the grounds, or ask about our membership. The Pro Gun Club is a great place to celebrate and respect your Second Amendment right. Spice up your leisure time with the Pro Gun Club. Call us at 293-2108 today.
We're going to take some time now and answer some of our viewer questions that you've submitted for Bob. Bob, our first question, somebody asked, every time I turn around, I hear someone using the term assault rifle. What exactly is an assault rifle?
An assault rifle technically is a selective fire, meaning it's full automatic or semi-automatic. They fire a cartridge that is stronger than a pistol cartridge and weaker than what we used to consider only rifle cartridges. When they first were invented in World War II by the Germans, actually, they fired an intermediate sized cartridge that was just halfway between a rifle and a pistol and had a magazine that held a whole bunch of rounds and were selective fire. The Kalashnikovs that are out today from the communist bloc and the M16s we use and so forth are basically refinements of that original theory of a medium-sized cartridge and lots of bullets.
Great. Another viewer wants to know, is it legal to buy a kit online that converts my AR-15 to automatic or 3-round bursts?
Absolutely not. If you have all the parts, you buy the kit and you have the AR-15 in your possession, as far as the law is concerned, you have possession of a machine gun. You don't have to put it together. And the sentence for that starts at 10 years minimum. You really want to practice pulling the trigger really fast and not worry about really getting a conversion kit. They're much more trouble than they're worth, believe me.
Now, being here at the gun store, obviously we have machine guns for rent.
We have them for rent, and we have licenses to have them.
Exactly. And a lot of people that come in here say, are those legal to own? Would you please explain to people, this person's asking if machine guns are legal or illegal, but explain how that
They
works
are
in Nevada.
legal in most states. Some states they're not legal for civilians to possess. In 33 states they are legal for civilians to own and possess. The trick is they have to be registered with the federal government, and there's a $200 tax the government puts on that. So if you go to buy one, whatever the cost of it is, you add $200, which you send off to the government with a form and your fingerprints and so on. It's quite an involved procedure. You're looking at 6-8 months. And then when you get the paperwork back that says, okay, Fred can own the gun, then you can go back to the dealer and pick up the gun and go on your merry way. Just can't take it into states where they are actually unlawful. Got to be careful there.
Another viewer wants to know, what are the limitations regarding knives? I believe that, like, carrying certain knives, are they illegal?
They are regulated by the counties and cities, wherever you may be. In general, in Nevada, you're safe with a folding knife that the blade is no longer than 3 inches. If it's a automatic opening knife, the law says the blade has to be less than 1.5 inches. So you can have them little pretend switchblades. Beyond that, there are various other knives that are illegal if they have the brass knuckles built in. If they are made as part of a belt buckle, so they become in effect a concealed weapon because they don't look like a knife. A conventional pocket knife with a blade less than 3 inches is no problem at all. The other thing that's illegal is anything you can carry on your person that's a dirk or a dagger. A dirk is a ice pick type weapon. A dagger is a double-edged knife. If that blade is longer than 1.5 inches or so, you're going to get in trouble with that one too. But that'll vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction in cities and counties around Nevada. So you really got to call the jurisdiction you live in and ask them that particular question.
Another viewer wants to know, what is the difference between a CCW and a CFP? We offer the CCW class, but we get this a lot.
We call the class CCW. It means carry concealed weapon. Nevada actually issues permits for concealed firearms. So technically the permits in Nevada are called concealed firearms permits, CFPs. And that's what it says on your permit when you get it. It says concealed firearm permit. Your blue card, oddly enough, your registration card has the old wording on it that says this is not a CCW permit. So the government uses them interchangeably, but the technical term is we issue permits for concealed firearms. We do not issue permits for any other types of weapons. Some states do, and they actually issue concealed weapon permits. You can carry an axe or whatever, a machete, something like that.
It's hard to find a purse that fits my axe
But
in it.
that's the problem. They don't make the purses for that with the holsters built in.
So in Nevada, we don't need a CCW for like a taser or a hidden knife or anything?
No, you
Okay.
only if the knife is over so long. That's
Yes.
the difference.
Okay.
But otherwise, they're legal. We don't issue permits for anything concealed that's a weapon but a gun.
Got it. What is the legality on having a silencer on your gun?
Once again, there's something legal. If we go back to the machine gun question, they're precisely the same. You can own one in Nevada. You can own one federally. You have to pay the $200 transfer tax. They treat them exactly the same way. You can then screw it on your pistol or your rifle, whatever you want to silence, and they're legal. They're not legal in most states. There are more restrictions on silencers than there are on machine guns. But basically because the public, the law enforcement in some states gets more excited about them because you have to be a hitman to want a silencer. It depends where you live. In Australia, they're common. Everybody uses them. They're cheap. They're not registered because when you hunt around cities, you don't want to spook the game or spook the citizens, so they don't think a thing about silencers. Here, they're always associated with gangsters. So the immediate knee-jerk reaction from law enforcement is it's a gangster-type weapon. Police carry them. They use them commonly for entries into houses when they're entering a house at night and they don't want to blow their own eardrums out and want to be able to hear their radios. They have silencers on the end of their guns. They're commonly used for real things, to muffle the gunshot when it needs to be muffled, but not legal everywhere.
Well, that's going to end our question segment. If you have anything that you'd like to ask Bob or any of our other panelists, please write us at questions@firedupwithbob.com. Mike Rogers has your Moron of the Week. Don't go anywhere.
Gene's Locksmith has been servicing Las Vegas and Henderson for 40 years. We're family owned and operated and provide 24-hour emergency residential, commercial, and automotive solutions. Instead of replacing, we can fix your problem, from key duplication to computer key programming. We have a wide variety of products, including the largest key selection, state-of-the-art security accessories, and safes by American Securities. Every team member carries their sheriff's card, so you can trust us when it matters most. Come to the castle. Gene's Locksmith. Call us at 566-4363.
Hello, I'm Mike Rogers, Director of Safety and Training for the Gun Store here in Las Vegas. Our segment of Moron of the Week is about to appear. We're going to use that to enjoy ourselves and watch not our typical customer. Ours have common sense, these guys don't, but we can get a lot of training value out of what's to follow. It's a shame to see a perfectly good AK get destroyed by a moron. These things are tools, they're not toys. Lots of bad things could have happened while he was doing that. He's very lucky that it didn't have a different effect in failure rather than catching on fire but blowing up. He truly does deserve the title of Moron of the Week.
We discussed Colorado's canceled gun buyback program.
It's a foolish law that they cannot effectively enforce. Several of them come right out, like you said, and said it's just a flat violation of the Second Amendment.
Are you able to protect your loved ones? We at the Gun Store have been helping Las Vegas residents equip themselves with home defense and personal safety products for over 25 years. We carry a full line of self-defense options, and our CCW concealed firearms permit class is free. Our other classes include ladies self-defense and free children's gun safety class. Our indoor range is open 7 days a week for you to try out some options and shoot a real machine gun. The Gun Store, located at 2900 East Tropicana Avenue.
And we are back here on Fired Up. We're going to talk about in this section a little bit about the state of Colorado in a couple of aspects. They've been running into some new interesting stuff with their gun laws they put through. A couple of their senators are now being recalled. The governor is being yelled at. And many of the sheriffs have banded together to not enforce part of the new Colorado state law that the governor just signed. First, I want to do a little comedy thing about that, actually. This group called Together Colorado had to cancel a gun buyback program at the request of the Bounty County Sheriff. His name is Joe Pelly, who says the new Colorado gun law will not allow him, or will make it very difficult to do a gun buyback. It seems the computer system that in the sheriff's office to do the gun buys cannot be used. The computer's not portable and so forth. Or perhaps the sheriff doesn't want all these people with their bizarre guns they're trying to get rid of or give away wandering into his police department. But the new law requires that any gun transactions are required to go through licensed dealers. And they get a background check, and the dealer gets a $10 fee for doing the background check. The organizers of this gun buyback, who are going to be handing in the guns, aren't a dealer. So they can't legally receive guns on the gun buyback, and the sheriff can't either because he's part of the state. He doesn't have a gun license either. no dealer in the area was willing to be the anti-gun dealer who was going to collect all these guns. So the buyback program they'd advertised for weeks and weeks just stopped. It's just so nice to see an anti-gun group trip over their own gun law that they just put through.
But I love gun buyback programs. You know, I think they're a great, because I know somebody who went to a gun show and bought a whole shoebox full of old broken break top revolvers and paid $50 for like 6 or 8 of them. And then this unscrupulous person went to a gun buyback thing and got $50 a piece. They got $50 a piece for all of these broken.
And the LA County Sheriff paid you how much for these guns?
It was really.
They do that. I saw a picture of one, actually the LA County just did down in Barstow, and they had a picture of a box of guns on their website. And there were several BB guns and things that weren't worth. Anyway, so if you want to get rid of an old gun, wait for the gun buyback and give it to them, and they'll give you money. The bad part of this law is it went through July 1, and it limited magazine capacity of any gun in Colorado to 15 rounds. It didn't allow the old magazines to still exist. So the problem is that anybody who owns a magazine that holds 16 rounds, which is a lot of the stuff that currently comes out, that what we call standard capacity magazines, has to modify them to permanently limit them to 15 rounds, or it's a crime to possess it.
Yep.
So they want the sheriffs to go around and check people to see if they've got 16 rounds in their magazine.
Because they have nothing else to do, clearly.
And actually, they charge them with a crime for doing that.
Well, at least it's 16. You know, in New York, it's 7.
It's
I just
7,
came back from the
so-
People's Republic over there. It was
Well,
an
but
interesting
you can carry
concept.
2 guns in New York. Then,
That's right.
7 and
each.
7 is 16. Never mind.
In New York?
Randy bought it. Anyway, so we have this crime. And with the Colorado sheriffs being more serious about this than I am, obviously, there are 64 county sheriffs in Colorado. 64. 54 of them signed on to a lawsuit against the state for infringement of rights, wanting to block this action that was signed by Governor Hickenlooper back in March. It went into effect on the 1st of July. So we've got 54 sheriffs, 54 sheriffs that are, whatever the number
You're
is.
confusing me.
That I'm confusing myself right now.
A lot
that
of them.
are suing over the violation of the Second Amendment in Colorado that they refuse to enforce it. So this is where the big issue comes, because you've got 54 county sheriffs refusing to enforce a Colorado state law.
And they're elected, so the governor has no power over them. I presume that the state could bring some kind of an action against them for failure to enforce the law, but ultimately it's up to the voters. And I doubt immensely that these 54 sheriffs, who are the rural counties, by the way, the only sheriffs that are willing to do this are in the big population centers around Denver, Aspen, and Boulder that want this. The rest of them, it's a foolish law that they cannot effectively enforce. And several of them come right out, like you said, and said, it's just a flat violation of the Second Amendment, and I won't be party to that. I took an oath to the Constitution, and I'm going to uphold it. It'll be interesting to see in the courts how this works out.
Absolutely. And you know, this is really to place the law enforcement officers in the middle of this debacle, to me, is morally reprehensible. Because if you enact immoral laws and expect your law enforcement officers to fulfill them, you're putting them in a very difficult position. I go back to history, and history teaches us many lessons. Think of the police officers that were part of the Weimar Republic in Germany, who suddenly are given a set of laws once the Nazi regime comes into power, and starts enacting laws which they knew were absolutely wrong. Who's required to enforce them? The police officers. and there were many that decided to leave the country because they were forced to do something that they knew was wrong. And this is the same thing here. And yet, they are legally responsible to enforce the laws that are enacted. And there's the moral conundrum right there.
It's catch-22. They feel their officers are wasting their time going around. They see a citizen with a Glock pistol that may have 16 rounds in the magazine, so they're going to do a stop and frisk and count the bullets in his magazine.
That's illegal.
And
Probable cause?
Probable cause? What's the PC for the stop?
Really.
To search the guy, and he's not doing anything wrong. I mean, if he's committing a crime,
This is where we make criminals out of citizens, and to do that, to take a law-abiding citizen, enact an unjust law, and then label them a criminal because of political expediency and because of knee-jerk reactions to a violent crime, to me, shows a real lack of justice. But that's just my opinion.
The
All I heard is Colorado's run by Nazis. That's all I got from his story. That's all I took from that. So.
Well, the government is. I bet the rest of them, the sheriffs are the people that are trying to keep this thing, because their argument is, of course, that the left is arguing, well, 15 rounds is too many, and that's plenty for anybody, and you don't need more than 15 rounds to hunt a deer, and that sort of crap they come up with. But the problem is, if they made it 15 rounds as a compromise. Originally, the bill said 10 rounds.
10 rounds.
So even at the 15, you've got dealers that are sitting on hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of magazines they can't legally transfer to anybody.
And look what company's in Colorado, Magpul, who makes all those magazines.
Not anymore. They moved.
Well, for the rest of the country.
Not anymore, Monty.
But the sheriffs are going through, and in this lawsuit, they just lined up and were making statements that they're not filing the suit for themselves, but one officer said, Sheriff, Weld County, said, but for single moms, the handicapped, the elderly, and others who need all the rounds they could have in their magazine because they can't physically operate. We just talked about somebody crashing into somebody's house. This is the real people. We've got a guy in a wheelchair who can't reload his gun because the one arm doesn't work, and we're going to tell him he can't have his 17 rounds in his SIG pistol.
Yeah, but
anymore.
we don't. I don't even think we should have to get down to hey, it's because of a disabled guy. Let's just talk about basic common sense, and get the political garbage out of it. And that's what this is all about. This is all about politics.
Oh, it absolutely is. When we had this in New York, you'll remember what we used to call New York magazines, Tony.
The New York Reload.
when the transit police in New York adopted Glocks, they thought, the administrator thought that 17 rounds was too many. And some other administrator thought, well, they should only have 12. And they compromised on 14 rounds, and they made, just for the New York Transit Police, magazines that held 14 rounds. Because if they had 17, my God, they could run crazy. These are cops. We don't want to give them 17 rounds, so we gave them 14. What are they thinking that's going to do?
Bob,
have anything to do with crime?
Just last week, I had a Honolulu retired police officer come in the store looking for 10-round mags for his Smith & Wesson 659. And I said, well, what happened? He said, he just retired, and for all of these years in Hawaii, he's carried 15 rounders. And when he retired, they took his 15 rounders away from him. He had no magazines for his guy. He's trying to buy 10 rounders because that's all he could have nowadays. But did 30 years with the police department. He's okay. Day he retires, pull them magazines.
Take 5 rounds away from him because he might hurt somebody.
The thing behind this is that it's a control issue, not nearly as much as a effective issue. Governments tend to try and control. Randy will remember this, when AR-15s became fairly common with law enforcement, in our own agency there was a debate over whether or not officers should be able to have magazines for their ARs with more, it was 15 or 20 rounds, even if they could hold 30 rounds. And there was a debate going on for quite some time before somebody finally said, why do we allow them to carry 5 magazines for their handgun, but we limit them to 20 rounds in an AR magazine? This is asinine. And I think it was really just the nature of governmental control. We want to control what people do, not because it's dangerous, but because we don't agree with it.
Right, and that's exactly right. This is government overreach once again, and we're seeing more and more of it in every branch of government. And now, but when you're talking about the safety of the public.
And it's vital to remember that all of the gun control legislation that occurred this year, whether Connecticut, here, the attempts here in Nevada, or in Colorado, was basically spearheaded out of New York City by Mayor Bloomberg. Right. He and his organization have been pushing this. He wants to push this. He has the resources to push this. And I'm not sure the people of Colorado knew what was happening when they came in and pushed this bill through. I think they've woken up. I think it's going to cost some political careers.
Well, there's 2 of them going to be recalled on September 10th because they got enough more people signed up for the recall to vote against them than voted in the whole state of Colorado in the real election.
Beautiful.
Wow.
So
Beautiful. That makes me happy.
We're so glad.
Finally.
We're going to break here for some commercials. We'll be back in just a few. Don't go away.
Tony D will have some historical firearm demonstrations for you.
Thanks for watching Fired Up with Bob. We're going to do another historical firearm tonight. Tonight we're going to do the MP40. This was the German World War II submachine gun that was widely issued by many of their troops. This was commonly misnamed as the Schmeisser. And what happened is that during the war, beginning of the war, when our troops apprehended or captured one for evaluation, they looked at the magazine, and on the magazine it said Patent Schmeisser. Right? Nowhere on the gun does it say that. In fact, there was a code, a 3-letter code that Germany used during the war to denote the different manufacturers, and this one is AYF, which means it was made by Irma. And this gun was actually designed by a guy named Heinrich Vollmer. So it had nothing to do with the Schmeisser, with Hugo Schmeisser, but he held the patent on the magazine. So when they captured the magazine, they saw a patent Schmeisser on it, they assumed that the gun was a Schmeisser. So it's on all the war movies you see, a Schmeisser. It's not. All right, MP40 was a very reliable gun. It was a very innovative gun. It was one of the first guns to use plastic and sheet metal. It was a 9mm caliber, and it fired about 450, 550 rounds a minute. It had a folding stock that could be used for paratroopers or tankers, and you've seen them in all the war movies. A very, very pleasant shooting gun. It's one of my favorites. It doesn't have a selector on it, so it fires in full auto mode only. It is very controllable, however, and you can get short bursts off or even single shots. And we're going to shoot it. Like most submachine gun, this gun fires from what they call an open bolt. In other words, I'll pull the bolt back, it'll stay back, and we'll insert the magazine and fire. When the gun fires, bolt will go home, strip a round off the magazine, fire it, and then when I let off the trigger, it stays in the rear position. All right. Magazine in, and here we go. Bolt is forward, we'll pull the bolt back, take the magazine out, and we're done.
We'll discuss older people being targeted by robbers in the Vegas Valley.
They're picking on people that are basically defenseless.
But these punks that target elderly people are the scum of the earth.
That's up next, right here on Fired Up.
Are you tired of the same old routine? It's time to shake things up with a visit to the Pro Gun Club of Las Vegas. Located just 25 minutes from the Strip, Pro Gun Club offers 160 acres of space, featuring skeet shooting, rifle and handgun ranges. It's a great place to practice, and safety is always number one. Come anytime and enjoy the grounds, or ask about our membership. The Pro Gun Club is a great place to celebrate and respect your Second Amendment right. Spice up your leisure time with the Pro Gun Club. Call us at 293-2108 today.
We are back here on Fired Up. We've got one last segment here with the panel. We've got a lot of other stuff on the show tonight, but I want to talk a little bit about something rather current. The LVMPD this week issued a warning about some violent robberies we have going on in Las Vegas. Apparently, a large group is targeting older citizens, and the robberies have taken place. There have been 10 of them since the 4th of July, all over the valley. Metro says the victims are generally elderly. They listed age 40 to 79.
Wow.
That's a little insulting right there.
If 40 is elderly,
safe.
they need a new PR guy. But most of them were beyond 60. What's happening is the suspects are following them home from a market or shopping or a bank. The suspects are generally black males aged 25 to 35. These are not little kids. Metro believes there's several groups because they're getting different descriptions, but the pattern of the robberies is the same. The victims are followed home. When they start to get out of their car, they're beaten into the ground and kicked. They take their wallets, credit cards, watches, jewelry. It's not to get in their house. It's just to beat the guy in his own driveway. They did fire at one guy, didn't hit him. As they were running away, they fired a shot back over their shoulder. They're picking on people that are basically defenseless. And I have a solution that comes to mind just immediately, but I'm going to turn it over to your experience, Randy. I expect yours is the same as mine, but what do we do?
This rears its ugly head every so often. This is not the first spate of robberies that follows this kind of pattern. What our citizens need to know is this: you have to be aware of the situation around you. Look around you when you are leaving the store. Look around you when you are getting in your car, and follow your gut feeling. Humans are equipped with a certain radar, a certain sensor that we tend to muffle. If you feel that something is awry, if you get that gut feeling, follow it up. Look around you. If you see anyone that appears to be suspicious, that's looking at you, you don't go home. You go back into the store and you call the police.
Good advice if everybody pays attention.
Have a plan. You got to have a plan. Again, I see people jogging in the park with their iPod on, not a clue. I mean, they're somewhere else. They don't know where they're going or what they're doing, and they're walking victims. They're walking victims. And you just got to and protect yourself too. Don't flash your valuables. Don't flash. I had a guy come in class, 82 years old, right? He's got a solid gold Rolex President on with a diamond band, a diamond bezel, diamond face, paid $56,000 for his watch. He's got a name, bracelet, diamond rings on all 10 fingers. Around his neck, he had what we used to call a Mr. T starter set. He had like 40 gold chains around his neck, and he's carrying a 950 Beretta in 22 short. I says, what are you, nuts? He goes, Tony, I live in a bad neighborhood. I used to live over behind the showboat. He goes, and I don't believe in banks, and this is my life savings, and I carry it with me wherever I go because I don't want to leave it home. He goes, and I said, you're 82 years old, you're carrying a 22, and you got a $50,000 watch on your hand. I said, you're a walking victim. I said, them little predators out there will kill you for a Timex. And I think,
well, a lot of the times these robberies are not motivated by profit. These punks, and I'm being polite simply because we're on television, but these punks that target elderly people are the scum of the earth. And sometimes they do it because it's a power thing.
How much can they really get from it?
Exactly.
Well, these are all low profit robberies. They're getting $50 or $100.
They talk about it with their moron buddies, their other gang punk buddies, and that's what it permeates. It becomes a fun thing for them to do.
It's also a low risk for them generally speaking, because they're older folks, and this is a good example of why gun laws don't work. There's an enhanceable crime, a crime against an elderly victim. It increases the amount of time you spend in jail, and people still don't care. They'll pick the older person because they're an easy target. This is the young cat on the Serengeti versus the old gazelle who's going to get eaten. And that's what's going on here. They're picking their targets. Randy, you said something about being aware of your surroundings. It goes beyond go back in the store. If you're driving home and you see a car makes the same 3 turns you make and it doesn't look right, in law enforcement, I know you know this, there's something called JDLR. It just don't look right. And that's what we, in our daily life, suppress because we don't want to be discriminating. There was a time where a discriminating palate was something you sought for, right? I don't eat at good restaurants. I don't eat junk food. Same thing here. Learn to discriminate in your daily life what's right and what's wrong, because it can be the difference between keeping you safe not pulling into your driveway with a car right behind you blocks you in, and then you're a victim.
Right.
Yeah, this is really a horrible thing that's going on, and these people are really defenseless. They were interviewing one of the victims. He's 79 years old. They threw him down into rocks. He had big rocks as part of his display next to his garage, and mangled his leg right to the bone. He probably is never going to recover.
You know, the crimes against the elderly are the most heartbreaking crimes that a cop investigates, because a lot of these people, once they realize how vulnerable they truly are, it's such a dilemma for them to try and gain back their confidence once they're victimized, and it's an incredibly sad thing, and really it shows the lack of courage that these punks have when they're willing to victimize an elderly person.
We're going to have to break it off right there. I'm afraid we're out of time for this show. Our guest attorneys, if you want to find one, are listed on the website, firedupwithbob.com. Comments and questions that we will use on the air, you can send to questions@firedupwithbob.com. And if you'd like to advertise on our show, same place, but go to Emily at thegunstorelasvegas.com and she can set you up. Thanks again for listening. We will see you next week.